Hugh, it's also today 1 week away from the start of the Major League Baseball season. The Phillies will open in Washington next Thursday against the Nationals. We're here. I mean, we went to spring training, we came back, and now we are here 1 week away from the start of Major League Baseball. And Hugh, there's something interesting that I'm noticing that has been out there a lot lately this spring, and it's a little different compared to last year. So I remember last year, after a couple years of the Phillies being in the wild card round, there was a lot of discussion on WIP, is this the year to win the division, right? And then they went out there, they won the division. And this spring, there's been very little talk about the importance of winning the NL East. It's more like, hey, yeah, just we'll see what happens in the playoffs. Even to the point, I'm listening this morning, and the morning show is talking about what's top of mind, a week out till opening day. And Joe said he wasn't sure if he even felt like he wanted them to win the division. And I understand the sentiment because we've seen how the format has changed in the baseball playoffs the last few years. But I'll come out and say it. Yes, I want the Phillies to win the division. And yes, I think it should be important to win the division. The way I view it is, it feels like the Phillies have talked themselves into a pretzel the last few years. Should we try to win the division? Should we go all out? Do we have to press early? Should we hold back for the end? Here's the bottom line. Just be the best team you could be and get ready throughout the season to win the World Series. And I look at it like this. Number one, this division is hard. And if you don't win this division, you're going to be in the wild card mix. If you're in the wild card mix, there's no guarantee to make the playoffs. There's other good wild card teams. And I don't want to have to play a wild card series if I don't have to. I want the Phillies to win the division. They won it last year. I think it should be important. I think it should be something they push for again this year. But I'm not sure, listening to those, players, manager, if they're really going to go all out for 162 or kind of pull back. Hugh, where do you come down on this? Because it's weird. Other sports, it's obvious. Baseball has become a little bit more of gray area. Like, do you want to? Is it important? Is it necessary? Hugh, is it important to you for the Phillies to win the division?
Allow me to long talk for a little bit, man.
Here he is, long talking Douglas.
Because the reason why is I feel like when I long talk a little bit, I give people a better understanding of my position when it comes to this.
Right.
Now, I've been a part of 2 NFC championship games, and we finally got over the hump in the third one. And every year, you always go out in that year and say, okay, you set certain goals for yourself in order to get to the ultimate goal, and that's the Super Bowl. There's been a couple of times, Joe, where we've made those lesser goals, and the outcome wasn't what we wanted it to be.
Yep.
Now, I say all that to say, last year when the Phillies started the season, they wanted to have the best record in baseball. They wanted to win the division. That was one of the goals they set for the failure that they had the year before against the Arizona Diamondbacks because of the way that it went down. So they set out this year, and they did everything. They've accomplished most of the goals that they want to accomplish except for the last one, and that's to get to the World Series. I think that being down there in Clearwater the last couple of days and talking to the guys, the message is still clear. And the mission is still in front of them. But they're at the point now where they just want to get in the dance and win it. So they don't really care how they get there. I think the biggest key to this season is to be playing good baseball towards the end of the year. I think that's the biggest thing because we've seen so many we've seen wild card teams that get in. We've seen teams that didn't have the number 1 seed win it. Over the last couple of years, we saw a team that had the number 1 seed or home field advantage win it. So I don't think that there's a right or a wrong way to get there. Just make sure that your bats aren't cold in December, January? December? No, I'm thinking about football.
September,
October.
Those bats are probably going to be cold in December and January.
I was doing well until I got to that end part. Damn it, man. Come on. Damn it, man.
It's all right. Listen, I understand your point, but so here's my perspective on this. I think we're playing with a little bit of fire on this. So it's been a few years of this new format, right? And what I kept hearing last year was, well, you don't have to have home field. You don't have to have home field. You don't have to have the idea of winning the division. But last year, the Dodgers did win their division and had home field. They won the World Series. The Yankees won their division and home field. They made the World Series. I just think over time, not having to play that first-round series is going to be an important thing. Last year it was. The years before it wasn't. Right? We don't know yet. That's not, as you would say, Hugh, it's an inconclusive study, this new playoff.
It's inconclusive.
It is. It's a Harvard study.
That's Harvard.
But my instinct is it's better to have home field and the first-round bye than have to play a 3-game series. And you might call this alarmist chilio. You might call this plant-based chilio. I'm just going to say it this way. Guys, I'm not sure if the teams that finish second and third in the NL East are guaranteed to make the playoffs. I'm going to make this very clear. I think the Phillies are a playoff team. But if they don't win the division, the NL has a lot of good teams. Like you could miss out on the playoffs if you don't win the division. The way I look at it is like this. The NL Central has to have a team. That's one. The Dodgers are going to be in the playoffs. So there's 2 teams. Mm-hmm. That means 4 other teams will make the playoffs. And of these 5, that means one of these 5 teams will not.
The Braves going to be better.
Braves, Mets, one of those will win the division, or the Phillies. Braves.
Wait, I'm just saying, that was just the first team that popped in my head.
Yeah, Braves. I'm sure it was.
Good morning, Atlanta.
There it is. Braves, Mets, Padres, Phillies, Diamondbacks. Just the math says one of those teams is not going to make the playoffs because there's only 3 wild card spots. So I don't want to be in a thing where we enter September. It's like, your Braves or Mets are 5 up in the division, and whichever one you think is better. And the Phillies are in a good spot, but they're fighting with the Diamondbacks, fighting with the Padres, fighting with the other NL East team. Like the playoffs are not a lock if the Phillies don't win the division. So I want to push for it, and I just think having that goal is a good thing. I don't want the Phillies to kind of meander through the regular season and say, we'll just turn it on when we get there. 215-592-9494. Let's hear if Dave Dombrowski asked on the morning show a couple weeks ago about this exact topic, because it's one we've spoken about for a couple years. Is this important? Should the Phillies go to try to win this division? Here's Dave on the idea of the division versus not winning it.
Is it better to win the division or not?
Well, you're going to try to win the division. That's the way it is, because you're going to try to win every game you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I the way I answer that question, which is taking an easy way out. I would rather go into the wild card if you guaranteed me we win the first round.
But that's you're right.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Because then you're rolling.
Then I'm rolling.
Even though you're playing the next series on the road in game 1.
I don't care.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Because really,
that's where I'm at.
Really, it's
But you can't guarantee it.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because it's in a short series, in a 3-game series, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Even much more so. So that's why, if you told me, I'd rather win the division and I take my chances, and I would like to approach that. Okay, how do we come in hot and play well, and that after a 5-day layoff?
I thought that was a great answer by Dombrowski and Hugh, because they all reacted the same way when Dave said, well, if you told me we'd have to play in the wild card round and we'd win that round and then we'd go into the next one hot, I feel good about that. But then Joe jumped in and said, but you can't guarantee that. That's why it's a challenge when they think about this, because, yeah, of course everyone wants that. But what if you get picked off in that 3-game series?
Yeah, but it's nothing guaranteed. You could win the division and still get picked off.
Well, the Phillies did last year, yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where I look at it like this. Where do I have the best chance to play my best baseball? And I've always been of the mindset. It's kind of like running a lap or a sprint or whatever. Initially you start running, your body's a little sore. It takes a while to get going.
Yep.
You got to get that lactic acid that has built up in your body. You got to get that out of there a little bit. But once you get going and it's smooth, now you can pick up the pace a little bit and you're used to it. That's kind of how I feel with any sport, especially when you're talking about playing in the best of 5 or the best of 7 series, is who has that momentum that's going to carry them.
Well, with an older team, Hugh, there's a chance the Phillies do it the way you're talking and kind of slow play this out of the gate. Look, Ranger Suarez has a sore back. We're going to get to the news, what Topper said yesterday. There's a real chance that they put him on the IL to start the season. And then, we see where he is, right? And Taiwan starts the rotation. I want the Phillies to try to win the division. I think it's important. I'm guessing a lot of people, though, after what's happened with this team the last 3 Octobers, are not going to agree with me today. 215-592-9494. Kyle, where do you come down on this? The Phillies are 1 week out. This morning they were discussing this. Topper's discussed it. Dombrowski's discussed it. We won the division last year. They did not the prior 2 years. Is it important to you for the Phillies to win the division?
I think to say it's not important, sorry, Hugh, is insanity. It's just way too risky to go in and think you're better off going in as a wild card where you could lose in a 3-game series. Think about it this way. The National League is really good. I mean, it's way better than the AL. Our division might be the best division in all of baseball, right?
I think it is. The best top 3.
Right, so if we don't make the playoffs as the division winner, then you're already throwing elbows with the other team that's the odd team out, right? Whether that's going to be the Braves or the Mets. And then if you look down the way, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, that's tough too. I mean, you'll risk missing the playoffs entirely if you don't go into this with the mindset that you need to win the division. And I think a lot of times fans there's like a false correlation here with that, the wild card. All of a sudden you have the hot bats, right? You're the hot team going into the playoffs. I understand that was kind of the way it went for us. But you pointed out last season it was the Dodgers, it was the Yankees. Both teams won their division.
Yep.
There's people get too hung up on being hot, where sometimes, and we just saw this as evidenced by last season, it is good to just be the better team. The Yankees, the Dodgers were the better team, and this is more of a minor point. But the fact that this team is a little bit older, I know it's only maybe 3 games, but you're just playing more games and you're playing longer into the season. If you do the wild card, I don't want to risk any chance of them running out of gas or them getting injured or them having a pitching issue, anything like that. It's just there's too much risk involved with not wanting to go out there and win the division. Now, we can go in as a wild card and we could be fine. We could win all the games. We can end up winning the World Series, but I think you have to go into this with the mindset that the division is the priority for the regular season.
I'm with you. Just try to win every baseball game. 215-592-9494. My concern is the sense I get is the Phillies are going to try to be smart with an older roster and give guys days off. And I understand the logic to that. But I also, I'm looking into the future, and they kind of slow play April. Ranger might be on the IL. They kind of, they let Taiwan start the season in the rotation. And all of a sudden, we're looking up on Labor Day. It's like, man, we're 2 games back of a playoff spot. Are we going to even make this thing?